Whew. So today we're going to be talking about the 2026 Winnebago Solis 59PX. Now that PX is important because that distinguishes that we are built here on the Ram ProMaster 3500 chassis. Now the Ram ProMaster 3500 chassis is about 21 feet long, 6 feet 9 inches wide, and it's going to be powered by a gasoline 3.6 liter V6 from Ram. And that's also going to be good for 260 pound-feet of torque or 280 horsepower to get you out of the way in traffic. Also has braking to adjust when you're on grades. Just a lot of features that we didn't have previously that I'm very excited to go over when we get in the cab there. And while we're on the outside, I also want to mention this beautiful bright silver for the PX is one of 4 exterior color options available. We can also get the ceramic gray, we can get the bright white, and of course the current somewhat limited supply paint color, the sandstone pearl. That's available exclusively on the Solis PX as well as the Travato lineup as well. So I wanted to talk about a few of the changes with the PX. We have a new interior as well as a new pop top now manufactured in-house with Winnebago. So we were able to make some adjustments to this pop top, make it fit adults, full-size adults, a little bit better, as well as fit your pillows and your bedding when you're up in there, and has not changed at all the height of the vehicle whatsoever. It's also worth mentioning up there behind that pop top, of course, you can see our roof access port. You can see a couple lines to our solar panel. We have 220 watts of solar power up on top of that flexible pop top. And then we have a Coleman Mach NDQ10. So a very quiet running AC for when you're staying at a national park that's very concerned about decibel levels, but not going to sacrifice any comfort when you're inside there. Now to talk about the driver's side of the van, of course we have our sliding glass windows and we have the new stylized exterior graphics. So now the Solis is going to have nice lettering on the back as well as these attractive pinstripes, just adding to the view of the van or the look of the van here in 2026. And from 2020 to 2025, of course the Solis PX was available on the market. But we had a different AC, different roof pop top, and of course different chassis throughout the years. This 2026 would represent the latest and greatest of what we have available to us, both from Ram and from Winnebago here. So right here we actually have the Truma external vent. This is both an intake and an exhaust for our propane fired Truma combi that we have inside. That's a 2.6 gallon water heater slash furnace, arguably one of my favorite on the market, very easy to service and a very friendly unit to learn kind of how to run these systems on. So for first-time RVers or a family of 4, this is arguably my preferred Class B. And then of course we have now an external city water connect. Previously we didn't see this present because one of the things that contributed to making the Solis a very successful extended season RV was having no water valves kind of on the exterior of the RV. But this is actually can be via termination valve shut off entirely in the event that you're only going to use the fill in the rear when you're staying in colder temps. So I'm very glad to see this on the outside for ease of use for our clients, but I'm also glad that there's still the option to kind of shut this off and keep it winterized if you're trying to stay in colder temps. And then of course I want to point out we do have the gray waste tank with a typical termination slide valve here. So you would typically put your sewer hose in your sewer hose carrier here at the rear of the van, and then when you're going to make it to a dump station, you'd hook up here to drain your gray waste. Similar to the Travato and all the other RVs, of course, but something that's different is we have a cassette tank on the Solis, similar to our Rebel or our Echo, and that's one of the things that, one, helps with an extended season stay because you have this water tank internal in the inside of the van. But it also gives you a wider range of places to dump this waste tank. It is a little bit smaller, that's one of the sacrifices, but the benefit here is you're no longer married to going to a dump station. We can bring this to a wider range of places to dump, some people just into a restroom or rest stop. But it's nice to see, of course, that option on an RV like the Solis here. That's at an attractive price. And then of course I have a twist lock 30 amp supply cord, but it's worth noting we have this nice indication here for if we have an issue with a miswired pedestal or just campground power that's not ideal. This is just one of the little things that's going to alert you if it's not in the way that it should be and kind of protect the RV from any issues there. And then of course we have a dump light with a switch in the rear to illuminate the side if we're emptying our gray or a black tank or just plugging in late at night if we've arrived at a campsite late. And then of course you see, and before I get to this real quick, Another one of the Ram 3500 features here, we have this all black aluminum stylized wheel. It's just a very attractive wheel with the look of the RV. One of the things in 2026 that I'm happy about. But we can see an exhaust peeking out here that's going to be more visible behind the rear of the van. And underneath you can see, of course, we now have an RVMP, a flex power generator underneath. This is, of course, running off gasoline. And this is actually a new choice with the Solis. This is going to be more suited for national parks. It's a quieter decibel level. It's also going to eliminate a carburetor that we saw previously. So as far as bringing in your generator for service, and this generator would represent one of the more complicated systems on board that you might have to go to a service center sometime in the lifespan of owning the RV. And it's great to see that now troubleshooting, actually fixing and having parts accessible, it's going to be a lot easier to get this generator in and out of the shop than the previous models that we've seen on the Solis here. And while I'm already sitting back here, might as well mention we do have a class 3 hitchback here, so 3,500 pounds or a max load of 350 pounds vertically. So as far as a bike rack, a spare tire carrier, or like another external storage box, we can never exceed 350 pounds on that. But of course, we have it already set up here to tow that weight. And we have a 7-way outlet, so similar to the majority of the trailers that we sell here, 7-way, and 4-pin. So jet skis, lawn and leaf trailers, little open-end trailers can be towed and already have the outlet to be hooked up to your Ram here. And of course, just while I'm standing, I always love mentioning, whether it's the Travato or the Solis here, they have you set up for a quick little exterior shower booth in the back. Of course, I have connection right here to my outdoor shower. And also, at least while we're here, in 2026, we've seen this kind of in-house water management system built by Winnebago. Just anything that wasn't as efficient with the previous model, they've made improvements on here. This is a little bit easier for winterization, and the pickup line is stuck just behind our panel here. But of course, if we're shutting off valves to that side fill, or if we're using our exterior shower or our fill just from the rear door, I'm of course going to still be using this area or my solar port or my outlets back here. But the same curtain that fits this back shower compartment, and kind of I'd be peeking over just about home improvement style here. This curtain also will snap to the front cab right on those Velcro straps. So if you don't feel like putting your cab blinds in up against the windows, you can quickly just throw that curtain up for some privacy, and something I love to see. As well as these thermal window coverings for the back. So this adds one thermal barrier to the back of the door, also gives you some privacy here. And this screen door also, with it down, adds another small thermal barrier as well. Little things that I really love to see on the Solis here. Now coming over to the driver's side, it's worth mentioning when I get to the passenger side door, I want to talk about the payload of the vans. That's one thing that's different between the 25 and the 3500, of course. But here on the driver's side, it's worth mentioning that both my doors will actually fold all the way up against the side of the body here. So if I want to fully open the back for an open breeze, just for a different look with the van, it's nice that on the Solis you can do that, as long as you don't have anything mounted on the back of the door, of course. And then we have sliding doors, or a sliding entry door with our sliding glass windows, both in front of and behind. And then right here, one of the things we're happy to see on the 2026 Solis 59PX is this adjustable table by the door here. I also like that they went with this nylon strap. Previously we had a metal paracord and we wouldn't want it to kind of damage the fascia or anything here, but this is easily adjustable, has a cutout so it can be stowed nice and easy, and doesn't really mess with the look or the functionality of this slide door here, but only gives you another added benefit on the exterior. And then of course, I have my propane fill, my bleeder valve, and my shutoff for the solenoid. This is nice to have, as far as, of course, I have a propane switch on the inside, but having one on the outside before you're going on a long trip where there might be bridges and tunnels, and you're confident you're not going to be running, of course, your cooktop or your heat or your hot water, it's worth just hitting that switch before you're locking the van, and now you're locked out from any passengers accidentally hitting your propane switch on. So just an added safety feature there, really. And I've got a lot to talk about in the cab, so we'll switch over to that in one moment here. But first of all, I wanted to mention right here on the ProMaster, I've actually have the payload, As you can see, we have 1796 of occupant and cargo capacity available to us with the PX, and that would be the benefit of this larger chassis. At the very back of the van, we have a larger storage available to us than on the Solis 59P. So when we talk about the cab and the inside, that's going to be a lot of the draw for this PX model on the 3500 chassis here. So give me one moment and let's hop in the cab and get into some of the features with the 2026. So the 2026 chassis available to us represent all the features that became available in 2025. So we're now seeing things like the adaptive cruise control right here on the steering wheel, the lane keep assist, the electronic stability control, and the front and rear park sensors, as well as, it's worth mentioning, on the 3500 chassis I have my tow haul mode right here to change kind of the shift positions on that 9-speed transmission, excuse me, with the brake assist kind of for starting on a grade, kind of like a hill start assist. And I also want to mention, for some of the more just aesthetic features of this chassis, of course, I have the wireless charging pad right here for phones that's compatible for, but also the seats have now changed with the 2025-26 Ram chassis. The cloth, this cloth kind of bolster here that would have been the whole seat, we now have a leather or synthetic leather resurfacing here. Now we have kind of more of a firmness. It's still a breathable seat, but it's actually a very nice feature to see in these chassis when originally we had cloth seats from 2020 to 2025 in most cases. And of course, it's worth mentioning we have 6 different airbags back here, one of course being in the seat bolster itself, and then we have of course one in our B-pillar here, one of course up front, and a few in the 2 to 3 in the dashboard as well. So in addition to, of course, these nice changes that are, of course, nice to the touch and nice to see on the chassis, we have a lot of safety features behind this as well. And we also have improvements with an electronic rack and pinion steering in the front. So we now actually have an even tighter turn radius than we had previously at about 36.3 inches. So in addition to, of course, all the charging, the Apple CarPlay, the 7-inch infotainment screen from Uconnect. This is the Uconnect 5, if I remember correctly. I'd love to talk about all that stuff more if you're interested in reaching out, but also let me move into the van here, of course. So both of my seats rotate, they adjust forward, back, and we actually have adjustments for the lumbar. For the base of the seat, I can actually tilt the base up and down. So like right here, for example, at 6 foot, my feet are a little bit off the ground. I can always just kind of lower down my seat bolster so that when I do turn around, my feet sit level with the floor. And then of course my backrest here will recline much further back, but I'd have to push my steering wheel in a little bit further. And it's worth mentioning, at least while I say that this steering wheel will telescope out further to me or be pushed in further to the desk, but I don't have an up and down adjustment on it. But in most cases, like I'm a 6 foot tall man, you might not need to. I've got space around my legs. The only thing that can kind of get in the way is of course my 3 cup holders here in the center. And also it's worth mentioning 18 to 22 miles per gallon estimated with the ProMaster chassis. Now we've got a pedestal table, and this actually stows really nicely just behind my 2 passenger seats here. And these are 2 seats with 3-point harnesses. They're set up for car seats, and that's one of the things that makes this Solis a fantastic family of 4 RV. We have a large bed in the back, we have a large bed up top, and we can always option a Ludo bed up here in case you don't want to double up kids on the loft bed up top. And I even have room to stow my ladder in this little eyebrow storage here above the cab of the van. Now, I also want to mention these seats serve 2 purposes. I have a quick little basin storage right here. A lot of times people will put their fresh hoses or maybe just like a cooler and some items in there. But then I also have the ever important service access both to my Truma combi and to my low point drains. So for winterization, there's 3 or 4 switches that are very important to you right here on the left. But just for the aspect of a van owner, it's nice that these things are so easily visible. If I ever had to shut off the tank at the tank, it's as easy as me lifting up the seats here, removing my little basin, and just hitting that on-off switch on top of the Truma itself. And then moving along, part of RVIA certification that you'll see on any of the RVs are things like smoke detectors, carbon monoxide sniffers. On any RVIA certified RV, you're going to see those present. So of course I have one right here. Got my owner's bag in my overhead storage in this little dining area slash, you know, of course our in-transit seating area. And then new with 2026, we have these nice magnetic cab shades. And these of course are gonna easily roll up. They snap into the walls themselves, but then of course we're just using straps to hold them up to give us kind of that light into the van. And in addition to providing light, these also have a nice thermal barrier to them as well, because of course, as well as we can insulate both the walls, the ceiling, having the pop top on top of the clamshell almost gives us an added layer of insulation on the roof here. And then we use a very, very good composite flooring that, despite its thickness, is not so heavy. Then that's one of the things that contributes to us having such a fantastic payload with this van. But it also works very well as that thermal barrier underneath. So our biggest thermal loss on our walls where we don't have insulation packed is of course our windows. So Winnebago providing these items is just helping you get one step closer to enjoying your van more months out of the season than that, let's say, another comparable RV on the market might not have the investment of that insulation in the walls. So moving from our front area here, last thing to talk about of course would be our solar controller. So again, I mentioned we have 220 watts of a flexible panel on top of that rooftop tent. And the rooftop tent is an option, but I would say you're more frequently going to see the pop top models on RV lots across the US. It's more so that if you were looking for this awesome floor plan and this investment and this build from Winnebago, we would order you one without, if it was not an option you were looking for. In most cases, we're going here at Colonial to try to fully load every RV we get, so you're going to see almost every option available on that RV. So in addition to, of course, solar on the roof and just kind of a report from our Xantrex monitor here, we have our Truma Combi controls. So this is very similar display, of course, to our Echoes. This Combi would have been among the first. This one is just propane. We have the Combi G on the Travato, and that one would be electric and gasoline. But keep in mind, if you're looking for another water heater, another air conditioner, here at Colonial as a service upgrade, we can make a lot of those things happen. But of course, we just have internal temp for the coach as well as water heat. We have eco mode, hot, and boost. And boost is meant to kind of more quickly reheat the water going through the tank. So if you've got multiple people back to back taking showers, or you're doing a substantial amount of dishes, you have the ability to kind of get more people in and out and kind of use the water heater system a little bit longer. It will cut down the heat going to the interior of the coach because it's prioritizing the shower. So I just want to warn you ahead of time. And then of course we have an eco hot system that's going to recirculate, kind of prime the system with the hot water. And it's nice to see both of those things present working in tandem here. And then of course we have tank heaters. So for the gray tank that's underneath, for any amount of the fresh tank that might be exposed underneath, we have heat pads to keep them warm. This is just my thermostatic sensor for my furnace inside. So as this gets cold, if it's ambient temp, let's say 15 degrees below, that's going to trigger my water heater to run, or my furnace, excuse me, to run to the desired heat that we have set here on the Truma display. And I've got a pump switch here. You're also going to see, and this is a hallmark of Winnebago construction, pump switches in multiple other locations throughout the RV to make it kind of just more convenient for you, whether you're at the back at the exterior shower there, at the exterior shower by the entryway here, just so you have a pump switch within reach no matter where you might be with the coach. Generator hours and our generator start switch here, as well as propane, battery, and our gray tank level visible inside on our nice little Winnebago screen here. It's nice to see kind of how well it's represented, how kind of easily you can start to tackle these things. With all our clients, we like to do like a 2-3 hour orientation, and it's worth mentioning that a Solis like this that you see here is one of kind of my most loved easy entry to market RVs, where people can really get into the RV, really figure out what they love about it, what they might want to change. And it's a very attractive price point to get into the RV and add what you might like. But of course, some of these options don't work for everybody. Here's my cassette toilet. This flushes, of course, off of my fresh tank. So anytime I press this button, we have an electronic flush here. But my slide valve, so dumping out the contents of the commode itself, is also always going to be from this manual switch here. We do have a heating duct in the shower. And one of the things that Winnebago likes to do is throw a clothes rod in here. A lot of folks with RVs might find themselves more so using things like a Planet Fitness bathroom or just bathrooms along their route when they're traveling. So sometimes this more so serves the purpose of being additional storage, wetsuits, bathing suits, towels, anything you might be hanging to dry. So that's why we have a clothes rod in here. But if I just pop this out of the way for myself, now I can stand in here at 6 foot, and you can see I'm kind of shrugging my shoulders to fit my head in place here. And there is a shower curtain that I would snap on the interior just to kind of give myself, one, the moisture barrier so I'm not getting my nice door wet here, but also I could have this door open, have the curtain in place, kind of put my shower mat right there just to give myself a little more elbow room if I wanted to. But the majority of the time, anyone taller than myself is going to spend in this shower compartment is going to be seated like myself here. Nice shower rack for all my toiletries, as well as a waterproof compartment for, of course, toilet paper or anything I don't want to let get wet while it's in the shower here. And the heat duct does have a little shut on it. It's worth mentioning a lot of those trim vents are going to be completely open. Reason being, they're very sensitive to blockages in the vent lines. So in the event you have like a suitcase blocking a furnace vent, it might throw a code on that display there. So as far as the way they're ducted or the way they're angled, we shouldn't get a lot of debris back into them, but don't think that there's something wrong. They are meant to be open for the max amount of hot air flow into the RV. And of course, something I love, Winnebago has these travel latches in place so that this door doesn't make a lot of noise, and a very strong magnet on the bottom there so that this door won't make a lot of noise, if any, while you're going down the road. And Winnebago spends a lot of time just investing into that alone, things that are going to make this coach more enjoyable, not just to drive, but to, of course, stay in. And then I'm just moving this out of the way here before I get back there so I could talk about our gas cooktop. We do have a lot of clients that will go with just a countertop induction cook plate, and they'll plug in here on the GFCI outlet at the end. They have USB outlets, traditional 12 volt or cigarette lighter outlet like we've seen throughout the days. This on off is just for my power to the whole switch, the 2 AGM batteries we have underneath, and then my exterior light and my interior lights here, of course. And then we've got our NovaCool 3 cubic foot DC, so 12 volt refrigerator here. This is more than maintained by the solar. This brand of fridge specifically, I see like less than 1 in 3,000 ever have really warranty claims. So it's just, I'm very, very glad we have this RV fridge. But what I was saying before, and I'm sorry I went on a tangent there, of course this gas cooktop is fantastic. We have a lot of people that prefer to cook with propane, but I do have a lot of people that use this outlet on the rear and just put an induction cook plate right on the stove if they so choose. It's nice that you kind of have the ability to still do that, but it's great that you have a propane cooktop from factory. And then moving down, we have a decent amount of countertop space, overhead light, overhead cabinetry, of course, in the kitchen. And Winnebago does a good job of metal framing out these cabinets just to give it the support. And again, keep it a lot quieter when it's going down the road. And again, you're going to hear me say this a few times. 110 outlet, 12 volt USB plugs, as well as a 12 volt or a cigarette lighter looking outlet here at the end of the kitchen as well. Then of course we have the Eco Hot that I mentioned before, but we also have a nice deep storage underneath the kitchen countertop and a drawer here as well where you can see that shower curtain for the shower that I just previously mentioned. Moving further along at the very end, we have, this is kind of our eyeglass view of our fresh tank. So in order to keep, again, make this as suited for extended season RVing as we possibly can, fresh tank will be inside the RV, kind of in the walls of that insulation. So in order for us to get a peek at where we might be sitting, I'm gonna actually see the water level rise against that light. Right now we're winterized, so we don't have any in place, but we'd see that line somewhere along here to let us know And if we're ever overfilling, it's going to spill out on the outside, so we know to stop filling. So now moving back towards the bedroom area here, first thing I want to talk about before I go further, we have this nice cabinet with adjustable shelves. This is where my clients typically put like their Keurig or some of their kitchen appliances that might not fit underneath here. And then of course we have another large overhead locker cabinet just over this side of the bed here. And this bed is actually what I'm very, very excited to talk about. This is going to be in the rear a 58 by 74 inch bed, and up top I have a 52 by 79 inch bed. But the nicest part is this new Reprieve mattress from Winnebago. We now have more of a cooling sensation with this mattress than the previous years, and it's also more focused on helping your pinch points, so to speak. So if you're known that you're gonna have back pain, shoulder pain, things like that, this mattress should be a little more suited, almost give you a better night's rest in your RV than you might have at home, and that's what we're going for here. So moving along to my side here, the mattress is very easy to drop down. I've got kind of my wind sleep system here where I have mattress slats similar to what you'd see kind of on a bed frame support. These nice teak inserts, and then of course here's the star of the show, the new Reprieve mattress. And me at 6 foot on this size bed, I mean, I typically find myself east to west, and I have, whether I'm facing this direction or that direction, kind of this overhead reading light, but it also works for when I'm accessing the storage below. And I pulled up this cabinet because it's important to note on this side, this roof locker, we have the roof access port right behind the pop top. So we have a sealed cap to the roof there. And if we're going to run anything as far as Starlink, Drive Reach, WindGuard Connect, any additional antennas, anything that we need to port from the exterior to the interior, we already have an access panel where we're not going to do any cutting to the chassis. We have a nice channel already laid out for us. And then of course, 12-volt DC outlet similar to a cigarette lighter, USB outlets, and 110 outlet below, of course. And then with my bed up, and it's worth mentioning, it's designed that with some bedding, of course, we'd still be able to fit it back here. I've even argued, or not argued, but I've even spoken with clients about keeping their pillows and such back there, because it only contributes to less movement out of this frame and therefore less noise when you're going down the road. So things that Winnebago is very proud of and we're happy to mention, we have this underfloor storage here. So if there's a ton or a decent amount of items that you haven't been able to find storage solutions for, as far as the overhead cabinets or any of these doors that I'm going to be opening and talking to about with you, it's nice that you also have this storage that you can have things out of the way that aren't necessarily getting in the way, especially when you have the bed down, because you don't need to be standing on this platform with the bed in its sleeping position. And then one of my favorite cabinets in the Solis, of course, in here we see the Ram tire change kit, and there's always the Ram tire fill kit, of course, as well as some goodies from Winnebago stored back here, and you can see the fender well fascia. This is one of the deepest storages in the RV and one of the deepest storages in any RV that I'm really glad to see. And then we have a nice deep drawer, but this also gives me some access to the back of our 12-volt panel here. And of course, worth mentioning, lithium compatible. So whether you come to a service center like Colonial and have your favorite lithium batteries installed, or whether you have it done at another service center, it's nice to see that you're not going to have to replace your converter. That's already set up for lithium. And then we have, as deep but not as tall, of course, as our storage on our left side, this nice cubby here, as well as another cubby below with access to our freshwater pump. So of course we have all the necessary lines to do winterization without accessing it, but it's still nice that in the event you need to service or clean your strainer, it's right there within arm's reach. And then moving to the very back of the van, now here's where the differences between the 59P and the 59PX come into play. This additional, I want to say 18 by 79 inch storage area in the rear, we have 4 aluminum L tracks on both sides, and then we have these adjustable D-rings, should have about 8 of them. And what I've seen here, I've seen 2 bikes. I've seen one bike, you know, of course, one wheel towards the top here, one wheel towards the bottom, one wheel towards the top here, one wheel towards the bottom. So if you have road bikes that represent a large investment. You want to keep them locked inside your van. It's nice that the aluminum L-tracks can facilitate that, as well as additional fridges, additional motley panels, anything that's adaptable as far as rod holders, anything that will go on the aluminum L-tracks, and we have the space to fit back here. I've seen people kind of push and be able to use. Whether it's a lot of gear for tailgating at your favorite sports event or a ton of gear for your favorite RV trip, you have the space back here for those additional chairs, those additional fire pits, whatever you might be bringing. It's nice to see both the aluminum L-tracks and the storage space in the rear, thanks to the Murphy loft bed. Thank you guys for sticking with us till the end here. This Solis 59PX is one of our favorite RVs as far as affordability, safety, and for the longevity and the use that you can get out of this RV right here. At Colonial RV, we try really hard to make the best educational content we can related to our Winnebagos and the RVs that we love here. So in pursuit of that, we'd very much appreciate if you would like, subscribe. That way we can bring you even more content, and we look forward to seeing you all again in the next Colonial RV video.